Broly. Since I was a teenager, first getting into Dragon Ball Z, Broly always had this weird pocket of fans that adore this character, and they have constantly said that he is the strongest in Dragon Ball. So finally, at one point, I got to watch the 3 Broly movies, and the first one was fun. The other 2, maybe not so much. But the bottom line with this introduction is that for decades, Broly has been this incredibly popular character among certain fandom circles. Then, with Dragon Ball Super Broly, Toriyama chose, and Toei, of course, and Shueisha, to take that character and reboot him and recreate him, except Toriyama's version was much different, however, incredibly powerful. The idea here is that Broly represents power and strength. And thus, on this edition of The Strongest in Dragon Ball, we're going to look at Broly, both the Dragon Ball Z and the Dragon Ball Super iterations, and I'm going to tell you why he's so powerful and so terrifying. All of that and much more on this edition of The Strongest in Dragon Ball here on Geekdom 101. If you like Broly, pick up the Broly I'm Canon merchandise line over on the Geekdom 101 store. I'll leave a link in the description. One of my absolute favorite pieces I ever released, and you can get it in various different styles, t-shirts, hoodies, v-necks, whatever you want, and in different colors and different sizes. Ships anywhere in the world. The best Broly merch ever. Get it today. So this video will be divided up into 2 different sections. The first section is going to be about the old Dragon Ball Z Broly, and then the second section will be about Toriyama's rewrite, Dragon Ball Super Broly, and the character that's been rebooted into the modern Dragon Ball franchise. So let's go ahead and start with classic Broly. Broly from Dragon Ball Z starred in 3 different movies in the original run of the series back in the 90s, and the movies were released theatrically alongside the anime, but they were separate from the main anime story, whereas when Dragon Ball Super Broly came out, it was sort of like a continuation of where we left off with the Dragon Ball Super anime. The movies have often been considered the phrase non-canon or not part of the main continuity of the story. But usually, and growing up, this is kind of how I felt, the villains of the films were relative to what was going on in the anime at the time of the release. For example, Garlic Jr. was the perfect villain power-wise for Goku and Piccolo to face off against in the very first DBZ movie, whereas if that same Goku and Piccolo fought Lord Slug, they'd get destroyed. And if Lord Slug fought Goku from Fusion Reborn, he would be annihilated, because it's always relative to what's going on in the series. However, movie villains tend to be usually scaled a little bit upward, if not a lot upward, depending on how you view it. And I would say that Broly is one of those characters that is, too many, skewed much higher than his anime counterpart. At the time of the release of the Broly film, it was right around the time that the Cell game was beginning, and there have been debates about whether or not Perfect Cell and Broly, who is stronger, and that's not what this video is about, but I want to talk about this for a moment only because you have to understand that there's been a lot of controversy about how strong Broly is. When you go into the behind-the-scenes production on the Dragon Ball Z movies, the movies were usually written by Toei Animation Dragon Ball showrunners like Takao Koyama. In fact, Koyama is the guy who was really in charge of pretty much all the Dragon Ball Z original 13 movies, and he worked alongside Toriyama, Tadayoshi Yamamuro, and others to construct this story. But there was no manga counterpart. So Koyama himself has gone on record to discuss some of the problems he had following Broly when it came to making these movies. He had trouble figuring out how to create a villain that was stronger than Broly, which has taken precedent. That statement has taken precedent among many power scalers to believe that Broly is the most powerful movie villain of all time. And it's certainly a possibility. However, you have to remember that each Dragon Ball Z movie is sort of like an alternate timeline. And even though some of them do connect with each other and even with the anime, you cannot overthink the canon. I've talked about this a million times because you're going to have a freaking brain aneurysm. It just doesn't make any sense. So if you consider the Dragon Ball Z Broly movie separate from the other sort of post-Broly villains like Bojack and Janemba and Hirudegarn, it makes it a bit easier to kind of scale him because you also have to upscale Goku and the other characters to match up with him. If we take the first Broly movie, which is Dragon Ball Z Movie 8, known in the US as Broly, the Legendary Super Saiyan, but known in Japan as Burn Up, Hot Battle, Fierce Battle, Super Violent Battle, if we take that movie by itself, depending on how you interpret the statements in that film will determine how strong you think Broly is, because at the very beginning of the movie, literally in the first scene, we find out that Broly is rampaging and destroying the entire southern quadrant, the entire southern galaxy, that is. That's been also a topic of interpretation too, because in the original story, the original manga, there are only 4 galaxies, and the word quadrant was used sort of only in the anime. So that can also lead to some confusion because some believe there are only 4 galaxies in the entire universe, while others believe there are multiple galaxies within each quadrant. It can get pretty confusing. When we get to the fight scenes in the film, Broly was smashing everyone by himself, which is really why he's such a popular character, because of how well he was in this movie. This dude was a beast. And we're talking about relative to the anime version or the anime portion of this story, we have Goku and Gohan both at full power Super Saiyan, aka grade 4. We've got Vegeta and Trunks both, able to tap into grade 2 and maybe grade 3, but they seem to be more so kind of traditional Super Saiyan. And then we have Piccolo post fusing with Kami, and Broly is just eating point blank Kamehamehas and laughing about it. You've probably seen the movie, you know how he is. It took Goku getting the power from all of his friends, including Vegeta, to punch Broly and be able to defeat him, which also gets a lot of misconceptions because of this idea that Broly was defeated because Goku punched a hole in a scar that was left there as a kid, which is 100% BS. I already debunked that years ago in a video. If you hear this on the internet, it's made up, it's not true. Broly was defeated by Goku because he was able to take all of that power he got from his friends, harness it into his fist, and punch Broly in the direct spot in his stomach to defeat him. But it wasn't the end of Broly, as he would come back a few years later for the second Broly movie, known to many as Broly's Second Coming. And in this film, we have him facing off against Gohan. Now, in the anime and manga, we find out later on that Gohan did not train during the 7 years after Cell before the Buu saga, and thus adult Gohan is not quite as strong as he was during the Cell games. However, in the movie, no such statement is made, and based on where the production of the film began, it's quite possible that the creators of the film didn't even know this fact, and thus Gohan did train during those 7 years. He even says so in the film, and because of that, the Gohan we see in Second Coming is more powerful than he was before, but so is Broly because he got a Zenkai after Goku beat him in the previous film, or the previous Broly film, that is. If you take into account how impressive Broly was in the first Broly movie and how much stronger he is now, that would mean that Gohan is also stronger. But remember, it took the family Kamehameha to kill Broly, which is again another scene that is up for interpretation because we don't know if that was actually Goku's ghost or Goku materialized on Earth. There's a lot of debate around that, and that's another video I did a few years ago as well, talking about the family Kamehameha and the mystery behind it, part of the Dragon Ball Mysteries series. So check that out here on the channel. Tons of associated videos with this topic because there's a lot to digest. But either way, no matter which way you slice it, Broly was beaten again, and then of course came Bio Broly, but that's more of a clone, so it's not the original Broly. Take that for what you will. Now, when it comes to the original Z Broly, he does have the legendary Super Saiyan power, which I discussed again in a transformation guide here on the channel. So I've talked a lot about Broly throughout the years, but he is an important character. What you have to remember when talking about Broly is that, yes, Takao Koyama, the creator of Broly, is the biggest Broly fanboy out there, and he is a guy who takes pride in creating that character, and he's always going to have his back, so he's going to say things like Broly being the strongest. Take it for what you will. A little while ago, Koyama was on Twitter, and people asked him about Z Broly, and he stated that he believes that, yes, that Broly could have destroyed a small universe, but he's not sure about a big universe, and that in time he could have done it. But like I said, Koyama's always going to love Broly and answer questions like that to back up his boy. He also stated straight up when he was asked that Z Broly is stronger than the TV anime, but not GT. And that's a weird response, because it's difficult to say if he's referring to like Cell during that time, like when the show was airing and the movie was coming out, or if he means the entire Z anime, in which case Broly would be stronger than like Buhan. And that, while hard to swallow, it can kind of make sense only because the fact that the movies take place in a separate universe and everything gets scaled up. But again, that's a far-fetched explanation for a lot of people, so I leave that to you as far as whether or not you accept that. But Koyama's contributions to Dragon Ball, specifically Dragon Ball Z, are always going to be respected by me, but he did not write the original manga. And you have to remember, when discussing things outside the original story, whether it be video games, Dragon Ball Heroes, or the movies, you have to always remember that these things can be debated on forever because of the fact that they're not part of the main story. So it's not worth screaming at someone else because they think that Broly might be Universal Plus tier or Multiversal tier, because there actually might be evidence to that. For example, Seth the Programmer has debated on this Broly topic for literally hours and has talked about this literally hours, like for a very long time with multiple people, and he has his opinion. You probably have yours. It really is up for interpretation, but there's no question that with how impressive Broly looked against the 4 Super Saiyans and Piccolo, the Super Namekian, compared to Cell, who was also really strong, Broly was an absolute beast. But remember, most movie villains are like this. They usually destroy the heroes because movies are not paced like the original manga and anime. The movie villains are there for a limited time, and thus they have to run through the story and have the good guy, as we've called it before, Deus Ex Goku or Gohan in some cases, defeat the villain quickly to wrap up the movie. Thankfully, with Dragon Ball Super Broly, it wasn't quite like that. So in the next section, I will be discussing Dragon Ball Super Broly and how strong he is, because his situation, although related to Z Broly, is different, but in many ways very interesting. Broly from Dragon Ball Super is an idea that was thought up by the production staff at Shueisha and at Toei Animation. After looking at the popularity of various characters throughout the years, they were the ones that suggested that they bring Broly back, and they did so, and Toriyama was advised or asked to write the script, and he did it, and I think he wrote a pretty good movie with Dragon Ball Super Broly. But he took ideas from Koyama's Broly and kind of modernized it, for lack of a better term. One thing I've been talking about for a long time when it comes to Broly in comparison to Goku and Vegeta, because Dragon Ball Super Broly is essentially a story about those 3 Saiyans and their fathers, which would be Bardock, Paragus, and King Vegeta, and how they all kind of had their destinies finally meet in this film. And that is the fact that while Kakarot was a low-level Saiyan and Vegeta was a super elite from birth, Broly, his power was sort of unusual. And we see this in a scene early in the film where his power was kind of, I guess it was difficult to actually nail down how strong he was. And one of the scientists suggests he may actually be a legendary Super Saiyan, which is, of course, an homage to the old movies from Z. But the idea is that Broly, unlike the other two, is a mutant. And I'm using that word not because it was used in the movie, but because I can't think of a better word to describe it, because we've always had characters that have had potential, like Gohan, Frieza, Jiren, etc. But Broly's potential almost doesn't make any sense unless you count him as being a mutant. We hear some stories about Broly growing up, but when we actually get to the fight with Goku and Vegeta meeting up with Broly, we find out some really interesting things. First of all, we find out that Broly has the ability to take the power of a great ape, an Uzaru, which is a 10 times multiplier, and harness it in his base form. Now remember, Broly in the film does not have a tail, so somehow Broly was able to figure out a way to do this, and a lot of fans have taken that concept and compared it with Super Saiyan 4, but it's not the same thing. It's really not. I can understand why they would say that, but it's not the same thing. People really got to stop comparing it. This Berserker form, or Ikari as some call it, even though it's kind of its own thing, it's not the same as Trunks' Ikari. This form of Broly is able to not only harness that power and kind of contain the brute waves, but it's also, Broly can also get incredibly strong as he fights. Now, we've heard, going all the way back to early Dragon Ball Z, that members of the Saiyan race are able to get stronger after fighting and get really strong when near death. And we really literally see this exploited in the Frieza saga by both Vegeta and Goku. And then it's kind of toned down a bit for a while until we see it pop up again in the Goku Black arc. Well, with Broly, it's like the Zenkai on steroids. This guy, in the middle of fighting, goes from being weaker than Super Saiyan God to being able to manhandle two Super Saiyan Blues post-Tournament of Power and chew right through a combo beam attack from Goku and Vegeta. You have to remember that at this point, Goku and Vegeta are ridiculously strong. It's not even like they were in Resurrection F. This is after the fight with Goku Black. This is after the various battles with Jiren and Kefla and them. Goku and Vegeta are ridiculously powerful, and Broly was able to catch up just like that and tap into Super Saiyan after his dad died, which gave him a 50 times multiplier on top of whatever mysterious multiplier Broly has, like himself. By the end of the film, Broly's fighting with Gogeta Blue and in his full power form, and he's hanging in there, taking some of Gogeta's biggest shots, and while he was losing near the end, he was still not like dying. And it wasn't until Gogeta had changed up his strategy to focus on Broly's midsection, which I covered in a video here on the channel called How Gogeta Beat Broly. In that video, I talked about it, that Broly started to really go down. Remember, Broly ate Gogeta Blue's Stardust Breaker and just powered out of it. So could it be because he's not evil in this version, unlike the previous version, or could it be because he is that damn strong? That's up to you to decide. But the main thing about Broly in this film is because of his bizarre mutation and his bizarre genetic structure, he was able to get stronger and stronger within the fight. So who knows if Gogeta Blue and Broly kept fighting and Gogeta Blue did not go for the Cosmic Kamehameha to kill him at the end of the movie, if Broly would have gotten even stronger. Now in Dragon Ball Super Hero, we know that Broly has become the student, and now he's learning from some very experienced martial artists in the company of people like Goku, Vegeta, Beerus, and Whis. This dude's power may not even have any limitations. We always hear about how Saiyans break their limits, and Goku and Vegeta have always been good at that, but Broly is like a different level. The only problem is he has trouble controlling himself when he gets into that rage power. But because this is the strongest in Dragon Ball, we have to discuss it because he's one of the strongest characters ever. Now, at the end of the movie, Goku makes a statement that has also led to a lot of controversy. He says that he thinks that Broly might be stronger than Lord Beerus. Now, this has been such a debate for so long, and it goes on everywhere. It's debated on Facebook, it's debated on Reddit, I don't know how many message boards, Discord, YouTube, and the question is, is Goku being serious? Like, is he saying that after fighting Lord Beerus and training with him that Broly is stronger, or that he has the potential to be stronger, or is it Goku misinterpreting the fact that he's never seen Beerus at full power, which a lot of folks have said, and it's true. Goku has never fought Beerus at his max power. And is it really possible that Broly is stronger than Beerus? Then that would mean that Gogeta Blue is stronger than Beerus, which would also mean that Ultra Instinct Goku is likely or possibly stronger than Beerus, but a lot of people don't want to discuss that or even acknowledge that. So it has become a fierce debate. My personal hypothesis, and again, it's up for debate, is that Goku was just kind of excited to see Broly's potential, and that he probably meant that Broly could someday be stronger than Beerus, but also it's implied, going all the way back to Battle of Gods, that any of these Saiyans could eventually surpass Beerus with the right training, and it feels like the show is heading in that direction, and the manga, at some point in the future, but that's a video for another day. However, it does seem that even though Vegeta and Goku are more experienced, more educated martial artists, Broly's internal potential, the way his molecules are done, the way his Saiyan genes are so mutated and so strong, power-wise, he could get there faster than anybody, but will he be able to be controlled? That's the scary part, you know what I mean? So if you were to compare and say, okay, is Dragon Ball Super Broly stronger than Dragon Ball Z Broly? Logically, you would say, of course he is. He's fighting at God tier level. He's fighting Super Saiyan Blues. Like, he has to be stronger because Z Broly never got that strong to fight those guys. But you have to also remember that the movie universe, if you want to think of it like this, exists outside of the main timeline, whether it be the Dragon Ball Z anime timeline, the Dragon Ball manga, well, however you want to think about it. And so because of that, it's a thing where possibly in the movie verse, or the Broly movie verse, Goku and Broly both are scaled so much higher that they might be a lot closer than you think. Now that's obviously just more of a fourth dimensional theory, not one that I actually want to roll with, but it's difficult to quantify Broly's strength because of that statement that was made at the beginning of the series, which Koyama himself confirmed on Twitter that Broly did indeed destroy the Southern Quadrant, the Southern Galaxy. I mean, it wasn't like he did it in one shot, that in time, Koyama even said, in time, Broly could destroy the whole universe. So if the Dragon Ball Super Broly is that much stronger, in theory, and of course we talked about this in the past, Dragon Ball Super's Broly might be able to destroy multiple universes relatively easily, but when we saw him rage out, we didn't really see that feat. However, you have to remember that during the Gogeta versus Broly fight, they did shatter the universe and tap into some kind of alternate realm, which is probably the most interesting scene of that fight when it comes to scaling and showing off Gogeta and Broly's power. They cracked the universe and accessed a different dimension. And to me, it's not that far-fetched in Dragon Ball, in the Dragon Ball universe, because we see Majin Buu and Vegito do something similar way back in Z. So that makes you obviously wonder, how much are the Dragon Ball Super characters holding back? If they power up enough, could they actually destroy multiple universes? We see Goku and Beerus fighting in the Dragon Ball Super anime, and we see that they're able to crack the universe there too. So really the sky's the limit, and I feel like at this point, these characters, especially the Saiyans, are getting so strong that if somebody were to tell me, hey, I think these are omniversal, or they're on their way to being omniversal, at least in terms of power, I wouldn't be surprised. Who knows what the future holds? I hope you enjoyed this Titanic Broly-sized edition of The Strongest in Dragon Ball. Thank you so much, and have a great day.